Hi, I'm State Senator John Morse. Thank you so much for visiting my website and taking an interest in some of my bills. This is Senate Bill 146, which was one of my first bills, and to this day, one of the bills that I am proudest of. When I was running for election the first time, knocking on doors, asking people what they thought I ought to do when I get to the state capitol, one of my constituents suggested that an awful lot of troops come through Fort Carson, and many of them fall in love with Colorado and the Colorado Springs and Pikes Peak areas, as many of us have, and so they serve at Fort Carson, but then when they get out of the military, they want to stay here in Colorado. And he suggested, with all the violence that's going on in war in Iraq and Afghanistan, that many of these soldiers would get out of the military, no longer be covered by military medicine, but would still have issues that would need to be dealt with on a long-term basis, and that reintegrating these folks back into society create some challenges, and those challenges would fall on the people of Colorado and Colorado Springs, since they're now our friends and neighbors. So he suggested that I find a way to help that transition and make sure that those soldiers could get back into civilian life and get their heads, frankly, back into the game. Well, an awful lot of what the soldiers need, frankly, is federal government help. You know, the United States Army is federal, the Department of Defense is federal, the Veterans Administration is federal, not state. And the state of Colorado certainly doesn't have extra dollars to throw at a problem that the federal government is not adequately addressing. So what we did was we figured out a way to provide mental health services that are so desperately needed by those troops as well as by their family members. This bill provides the services to the family members of recently discharged veterans of the Iraq or Afghanistan wars. Not prior wars, unfortunately, because we had to keep it small to test this as a pilot project in Colorado Springs, but we were going to provide the mental health services to the family members of recently discharged veterans, because the military no longer cares for them, they're not eligible for VA benefits, they actually have nothing. So we were thinking if the state could help them, get them into the treatment and counseling that they needed, then perhaps they could get their loved one into the treatment or counseling that he or she needed, although that would be different and would be paid for by the Veterans Administration. So this was a pilot project to be run in Colorado Springs. It was $300,000 over 3 years to try to get those services to those family members so that the soldiers themselves would get their own services in a different way. Very good idea. I think the community of Colorado Springs came around this idea to try to help figure out how to implement this. And implementation is always an issue, and it's been an issue on this bill as well. But we have made some progress, and this bill was passed in 2007, and now even in 2010 we still see huge issues with soldiers returning from combat with traumatic brain injury, with post-traumatic stress disorder, all of which really is going to have to be taken care of sometimes for the rest of their lives. So this was a very good idea that was the tip of the iceberg, and I am very proud that we did this. But that's what the bill does. Thank you so much again for having an interest in it. Think about friending me on Facebook. Think about leaving a $5 contribution on your way out of the website. Keep in mind, there's going to be money in politics. The way to get big money out is to get little money in, and so $5 from you occasionally will go a long way towards doing that. Thank you again for taking the time.